Hello. Welcome back to Module 2, Foundations of American Government. Today, we will continue with Section 3, Equality. Last time, we talked about natural rights. In this video, which will be the first of two, you will learn how the founders and framers applied natural rights to understand the concept of equality and how that idea is fundamental to the nation they created. The concept of natural laws and rights lead to one of its most important implications, equality. The natural right to liberty promotes all other rights. Far from an elaborate or vague concept, equality is a simple and clear principle that is central to the political theory of the American founding. James Wilson, who signed both the Declaration and the Constitution, declared, "All men are, by nature, equal and free. No one has a right to any authority over another without his consent. All lawful government is founded on the consent of those who are subject to it. Such consent was given with a view to ensure and to increase the happiness of the governed, above what they could enjoy in an independent and unconnected state of nature. The consequence is that the happiness of the society is the first law of every government." Equality justified the revolution and led to the creation of a government whose purpose is securing the natural rights of its citizens. Equality is a moral claim perceived in two different ways. First, there are the moral rights and obligations that human beings owe to each other. Second, there is the claim about the right to rule. Who has the right to rule others who are born equally free? Abraham Lincoln said, "Public opinion, on any subject, always has a central idea, from which all its minor thoughts radiate." For Lincoln, this central idea was the Declaration of Independence and its notion of equality, the simple idea that no person may rule over another without the latter's consent. Herman Melville said equality is not the dignity of kings and robes, but that abounding dignity which has no robe investiture. "Thou shalt see it shining in the arm that wields a pick or drives a spike, that democratic dignity which, on all hands, radiates without end from God Himself, the just spirit of equality, which hath spread one royal mantle of humanity over all mankind." As we have discussed, the American founders looked to classical and Enlightenment thinkers for inspiration. Writing in The Social Contract, Jean-Jacques Rousseau proclaimed that man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. By this paradoxical statement, Rousseau observed that freedom is the natural state for humans, but society represses that innate liberty through regulations, laws, and institutions that control behavior. While these social structures may have originally been established for the common good, they invariably lead to the erosion of personal freedoms. In particular, he rejected a society based on the idea that there are those who are destined to rule and others who are only fit to be ruled, the notion that might makes right, or the institution of slavery. Instead, he advocated for participatory governance aligned with the general will, or the unified will of the people. The founders were also influenced by the early Plymouth colonists. Before the Puritans set sail for the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1630, John Winthrop gave a lay sermon in which he introduced the modern idea of the city upon a hill. That phrase, taken from scripture, was originally meant to suggest the colony would provide an example to the world of Christian faith, hope, and charity. While advocating for a godly community, he described a civil society that worked toward the common good, just government, and civic virtue. The Mayflower Compact established the first social contract in colonial America. While they acknowledged their earthly allegiance to the British Crown, they formed their own local governments, appointed their own magistrates, decided issues of war and peace, and enacted laws and regulations for public order. All of them 30 or 40 years before King Charles II authorized a royal charter for the colony. John Quincy Adams said in 1802 that the signers of the Mayflower Compact formed themselves into a body politic, the day after their arrival upon the coast, and previous to their first landing. That is, perhaps, the only instance in human history of that positive, original social compact, which speculative philosophers have imagined as the only legitimate source of government. Here was a unanimous and personal assent, by all the individuals of the community, to the association by which they became a nation. Writing in Common Sense, Thomas Paine expanded on Winthrop's imagery by describing America as a beacon of freedom to the world. He said, "O ye that love mankind! Ye that dare oppose, not only the tyranny, but the tyrant, stand forth. Every spot of the old world is overrun with oppression. Freedom hath been hunted round the globe. Asia, and Africa, have long expelled her. Europe regards her like a stranger, and England hath given her warning to depart. Oh! Receive the fugitive, and prepare in time an asylum for mankind." The Mayflower Compact, borrowing principles from the Magna Carta and the British Petition of Rights, inspired the American founders in championing the idea of popular sovereignty. Winthrop's sermon and the Mayflower Compact foreshadowed the enshrining of the concepts of natural rights, personal freedoms, and equal protection under the law. In a letter to William Penn in 1766, John Adams wrote that, "All men are born equal," a notion found throughout Enlightenment philosophy and repeated in the Declaration. What does it mean that all men and women are created equal? This becomes a challenge to aristocracy and hereditary privilege. Few people in the 18th century would have doubted the profound differences perceived to exist between the landed aristocracy and the common folk. Nobles and the gentry were thought to be motivated by pride, honor, and ambition. Peasants were driven by physical hunger and other considerations of survival to labor for their supposed betters. Are you equal to Patrick Mahomes or to any of the Rolling Stones in terms of talent or fame? Likely not, so how is everyone equal? The answer is that every human being has equal dignity even though they may be endowed with different abilities. What do I mean by the word dignity? It references the nature of humans as having a right to exist. Cicero argued that, law in the proper sense is right reason in harmony with nature. This law is universal and unchangeable. Every individual, by virtue of their reason, participates in this law and therefore has inherent dignity. Moreover, we are equal because, as Aristotle observed, man alone among the animals has speech. As you may remember from the last section, he claimed that man is by nature a political animal, meaning humans are social creatures who possess the ability to reason morally and employ rational speech. When you are talking, you are thinking out loud. When you are thinking, you are talking to yourself silently. Aristotle said animals have a perception of the painful and pleasant and signal these things to each other. They know only stimuli such as hunger, cold, contentment from a full belly, and warmth. Whereas only human speech serves to reveal the advantageous and the harmful, and hence also the just and the unjust. Humans can reason and communicate complex ideas to one another. We can discuss what is good for us and what is bad, or what is fair and what is unfair. While animals and nature are red in tooth and claw, as Tennyson put it, humans can use speech to live together in society, create laws, and make decisions for the common good. While the King of England might live in a palace, ride in a fine carriage, and rule a vast empire, he shares that most basic capacity with the poorest wretch in Boston, the ability to speak. As Thomas Jefferson said, the mass of mankind has not been born with saddles on their backs, nor favored few booted and spurred, ready to ride them legitimately, by the grace of God. The king can put a harness on the horses that pull his carriage, but he cannot treat people like animals. Granted, there were limitations on this idea at the time, such as the exclusion of women and enslaved people from the political process. With the fullness of time, all men would come to be understood to mean all humanity. Reformers such as Abraham Lincoln, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Martin Luther King Jr. would rightfully interpret the Declaration to mean this, thus seizing the historical and moral high ground. As you will see when we discuss the practical applications of the Constitution, The arc of the moral universe is law, but it bends toward justice. Next time. In the next video, we'll continue this discussion by looking at specific forms of equality. Until then, thank you for your time. If you want to learn more about the subjects we have discussed, here are the sources used for this section.